What's good? What's good, YouTube family? Monster built the church. I go by the name Pushy Push. Down below is my TikTok at pushy.push. Definitely go over there and check out some of my short form videos. Also, drop a like right here at Pushy Push on my YouTube. Definitely drop a like and subscribe, family. But let's get into this one right here. So I'm pretty much continuing from a couple videos that I've dropped. I've had this idea and a bit of my research that has given me a particular outlook when it comes to a history reset. So in my previous videos, I was showing how the elite, the ones who mold our history, in my opinion, place their peers inside of our history, inside of the scriptures, inside of a lot of our fable stories. So I chose to come at this in a different manner. So I know that the picture looks pretty crazy right here, but it's going to make sense. So I want to pose this in the form of I guess, a question or even a statement. You know, um, what if someone told you monster built the church? How would that ring, like inside of your head when you hear that? Monster built the church. Uh, Initially, I would expect a person to possibly feel offended, especially if they're deeply religious, if someone is telling them that a monster built the church. But this is the very thing about perception, about how we see things. So a lot of the information that we have in the year 2025, then that a lot of us grown up with, is regurgitated, twisted information. And I'm going to show that right here. So you can see the monster character. He's definitely a monster. Has eyes on his hands. He's definitely a monster. But this is what I'm talking about right here. So this right here is in Dutch, but there's some English parts. So we're going to be looking at this blue area right here. It says the EN, so that's for English. It says monster equals monasterium, used for various religious buildings. Monster equals monasterium. What does that sound like to you when you hear that? Monster equals monasterium. See, I started this off by saying, what if someone told you monster built the church? And you can see right here in English, it's saying monster equals monasterium. What this is essentially saying is that the original name for monasterium is monster. The original name for a monastery is monster. And that is something that we're going to look at because this name goes from being the boogeyman in our time and in the medieval time being the actual family name and the name of buildings. So this is what I mean when I say like how the elite has placed their peers' names inside of history and how it gets regurgitated back to us in a different manner. So this is how we're going to look at this right here. But monster equals monasterium. So the original name for a monastery is monster. Going to the next one right here. This whole piece right here is written in Dutch, but on to the far right, it is translated in English right here. So we're going to look at this blue part at the top and then look at the translation right here on the right side. You look at the blue right there, it says monster, and then it says monasterium. The exact same thing, this didn't have the equal. This is telling you that the monastery, that the name was originally monster. We today have a different outlook on that word monster. That word monster is connected to the boogeyman, something that is horrific, something that goes around and attack people. And here in the Middle Ages, the original monster was the name of a monasterium right there. So we're going to look at this a little further. And this is the Dutch part. So this right here on the left is in Dutch. And on the right here is in English. So I'm going to read the right side right here. Something to look at. On the left, it says De Kerk. Do you know the name church in Dutch is Kerk or Kerke right there? So definitely something to look at. But it says the church, undisputedly, the main church of Behust. I don't know how to say this word, Shielde, but Behust in the late Middle Ages was known as Monasterium. I want to read that again. The church, so the building, the church, undisputedly the main church. So the main church of this place that is in Europe, Behust, in the late Middle Ages was known as a monster, a monasterium. The church was known as a monster. So their main church that's in Behust was known as a monster in the Middle Ages. Today, what do we think a monster is? And that's what I was talking about in the beginning. I said, what if someone told you monster built the church? You would get instantly offended, you know? And that's kind of like the thing with the last video. I kind of felt people were instantly offended. But this is history right here. It's not trying to disrespect the church. It's actually showing you that the original name for a monastery is monster. This was the main church. You see right here, monastery. So monster and monastery is the same word. So the place where monks are at. We can go back real quick right here. At the top of the blue right there, it says monk, M-O-N-K, monk, M-U-N-K. So this is the place where monks are at. That place was created by a family named Monster. That name right there, monastery, comes from the name monster. Monster has a different meaning for us today, though. And the name monastery is the same thing. It comes from the name monster. So when I say monster built the church, I am not being disrespectful to someone's religious point of view. It is actually history. The question is if monster is the name of a church or the name of a monastery, how did it become the boogeyman for us today? That is the thing to look at. But going to this a little further, we're going to look at this bottom half where it says there is a great deal. It says there is a great deal of uncertainty over the origins of the name monster. It says it is possibly derived from the Latin monasterium, meaning monastery. See, the word monster and monastery is the same word. It goes on and says the name was also used for the ground that belonged to a monastery. So back in the days, in the ancient, or at least the Middle Ages, when you went to a monastery, they went to a monster. They literally said the word monster. It goes on further and says another explanation was that monster was derived from the Old Dutch word monster, which meant, amongst others, big church. So in Dutch, the word monster meant big church, or in Dutch, the word monster also meant monastery. We have a different outlook on the name monster. Like this is pretty interesting right here. This is Monster, South Holland right here. You can see at the bottom in the red, they call churches monster, you know. And I'm not saying that that is the boogeyman. We've been taught that that word is connected to negativity. And I'm simply showing that this name monster is connected to churches, it's connected to monasteries. And I'm about to show you that it's also a family name. So it's ultimately going to show that a family whose name is Monster built churches and monasteries during the Middle Ages. Somehow, 900 years later, the word monster is now associated with negativity, the boogeyman, something that goes around and attack people. So this is Monster right here. South Holland says Monster is a large village in the Dutch province of South Holland. It is an actual place. This is where, things get interesting. Because if I'm showing you Monster in the medieval time period as being, you know, um, a place that's in Denmark, that the monasteries is named after and churches are named after, then what are we looking at right here on this can right here? Because this symbol right here is rooted in occultism. So it's rooted in religion. It's just what type of religion? And then the name monster itself. Is they talking about monster as in the boogeyman? What type of monster is they talking about? Because that symbol right here is inside of occultism. So we look at that name and we associate it to how we view it today. But when I look at that name, monster, I associate it to that family that built churches. And it makes me wonder, was this family involved in occultism? See, the elite has put this can together, has pushed this out for the public. And, no one really pays attention to the writing on there. But monster right there is the name of a family, is the name of a monastery. All monasteries are actually originally called monster. It is the name of a church. So when you know that monster is the name of a church and then you see that symbol, what are they saying right there? That's the difference when knowing about where these names come from. Like I was saying in the other video, I believe that they took their peers and they placed their names all throughout history. You know, Monster might not have been something that everybody liked, and I'll show you why. You get right here. I had the luxury of watching this show when I was younger, but this show is like uh, from the 60s. It's been around for a long time, but it says the Munsters and it's with a U. So Munster, Munster. Now, when I look at this and what I know today, I see the wild men or hybrid people, and I see a female who is not as affected by the genes as the rest of the family right here. That's what the monsters are to me. But again, this is the view that we got, that, there are people out there who are different than everyone else. But I want to show you something right here. It says Munster. So Munster. Right there, it says Munster, Munster, Munster. And if you look, it says German, and right underneath that, monster. Right under Munster, monster. So we talking about this is the same people. This is the same people. Munster and monster is the exact same thing. So what are they saying when they show you this right here? This name Munster has been around since the Middle Ages. The name monster has been around since the Middle Ages. The name monster is associated with building churches and and monasteries. So we're talking about a whole 800-900 years later, and now monster is associated to what I would call the wild people. And now on everyday products, you have this word monster, and it's associated to occultism. The name monster is not a boogeyman name. That name used to build churches. That name is the name of a monastery. And now it's on a can that has what I believe occultic symbols on there. So it makes me wonder, when you're bringing history all together, what are they saying about the word monster? This family that built churches, were they really monsters? Were they really wild people? Were they these type of people that built churches? So we'll look at this right here. It says, where is, my last name from? Monster. There's three like countries that have this name: the Netherlands, Denmark, and Germany. So we go back here. This was the one in Germany, Munster. Munster and monster is the same name. It's the same family. It says, where is my last name from? Monster. So monster is a family name. Monster is people who built churches. Now the question is, what type of people are they? Are they really monsters? Are they really wild men? It's funny that they would take a name from the Middle Ages and attach it to a show, and it looks like this. Or to take the word monster and then put it on a can like this. And we look at this as everyday product, not realizing that this name comes from the Middle Ages. And this is all done by elite. This is not done by common people right here. This is like almost like a Hollywood way of rethrowing something back at you, and you don't know what you're looking at. You don't know what you're involving yourself with, because we don't know the history of anything. This name monster is a church. It is a monastery. And it's odd that the name Munster and monster is the same thing, and they got a family. But there is a real family out there, monster. There is a real family out there. Just wonder if they're wild men. But it says right here, monster family crest. And this is the reason why I wondered if they were wild men. I'm not gonna lie. It says the monster family crest refers to the coat of arms or family crest associated with the surname monster, which can be traced back, yeah, to Old French monstre, meaning monster or marvel, and could symbolize strength or uniqueness. The word monster has a meaning of marvel. The word monster has a meaning of marvel, has the meaning of strength, has the meaning of uniqueness. When you think about a monster in our time is strong. A monster in our time is unique, and it is something you would marvel at. This definitely makes me think of like the X-Men, like you're dealing with monsters. But, that is just the definition that they have right there for this monster, the monster family crest. Right here, just to touch back on it, it's in English, monster equals monastery. So this family, this monster family, which can be Munster if it's in German, it's the exact same family. And this family has built churches, has built monasteries. Go back just real quick. It says right here on this bottom piece, there's a great deal of uncertainty over the origin of the name monster. It probably derives from Latin monasterium, meaning monastery. The word monster was the original name for monastery. So when you say monster, you're saying monastery. That is, and they made these buildings. They built these buildings. It says the name was also used for the ground that belonged to a monastery. Another explanation was monster was derived from the Old Dutch word monster, which meant, amongst other, big church. So when I say, did monster build the church? We're talking about a family who ruled during the Middle Ages and obviously had enough power to where, they had a village behind them. Like if you look at the top, just going in, it's got some words I can't really pronounce, but it says in the 13th century, a great deal of the Westland, Lustian, and the Hague were administered by monster. So we're talking about a place that had so much power that it was involved with the Hague. You know, it says when the Hague came to be constructed, a split was made in the Hague and half of Lunston. It says the later village was separated from Monster in 1812. So we're talking about this place, Monster, which was made by this family, just started having separations in 1812. So we're talking about something that existed for a long time. A family name. Now, all the monasteries are named after them. And that's why I said, you could easily take offense. Somebody tells you monster, built the church. And it's true. A family named Monster who had immense power enough to be involved with the Hague, built monasteries and built churches. And now, in our time, when we see the word monster, that is how we see it. So, this is the reason why it's offensive, just like the very first picture I showed. This is the reason why monster is offensive. But I'm saying this is deeper than being offensive. This is the name of the monastery, this is the name of the family. They also call monster big church. So this is the name of a church. So when you look at this is a cultic symbol with a church name on it. Monster is a church and they have an occultic symbol. And it makes me wonder, like, was something satanic with the families who was building churches with the name Monster? Was say the original tent, was it occultic? Was it even Jesus based, And that's why I said it was just awfully odd. I thought nothing of this show when I was younger, but when you start putting pieces together, you have a can that says Munster, and Munster is associated with a church and occultism. That's what it shows on the can. And then I'm showing you Munster as in the show, and they have them looking like wild people. But these are real names. Monster and Munster right here are the same thing. So you have a identity twist. I don't understand how you can take someone's name from the Middle Ages and give it a whole new meaning, you know, um, 800 years later. This will almost look like a reset. And if that's the case, then when I see this can, I feel like, you know, hidden knowledge is being thrown in my face. And because I think Monster the Boogeyman, I would never get this. This is the name of a church. This is the name of a family. This is the name of a monastery. Monster is the original name. And they are saying that this church is connected to occultism. It could be definitely a rough stretch with the Munsters, but I do wild man studies and I do sit and show in a lot of videos that I believe that another bloodline or some type of hybrid line took over the power structure of the world, So it makes me wonder, it definitely can be a stretch. But when you look right here and you see monster and then monster, and they're both the same, well, are they monsters? Are they monsters? That's pretty wild right there. And like I said, this is not to offend anyone, um, history is just not going to go the way that we like it to be, and I personally think a lot of the historians are on the bad side of history. I don't think that we're getting the full truths. I can do other shows right here where I can show you the name church is actually the name of a deity. I can show you where the word Bible is also the name of a word of a deity. But me saying both those things, that church is the name of a deity and Bible is the name of a deity, are things that would definitely offend a super religious person. So I felt like I had to make this video right here to show that it does exist. Things have parallel meanings. Like in the Middle Ages, it once meant something, and now in our times, it means something else. Does the meaning of it change? Like, for our time period, is it more important? Or does the originality of the word, does that have importance? And to an elite person, to a Illuminati person, this is throwing history up in your face. This is telling you something in a form of advertisement. Like I said, you would look at this as the boogeyman, but I'm showing you this is the name of a church. This is the name of a family that built the church. This is the name of a family that built monasteries. Monasteries is literally what's called monster in the beginning. And this can is saying that this whole thing, this church is occultic. They're literally saying it right there. So I'm gonna let that sit right there, family. I'm gonna definitely drop another video. I'm looking at, because I was going to do the Psalms Manozer, but I really felt like I had to do this right here to kind of prove it, that even the name church it carries a name of what's today considered to be a negative name. So I don't know if monster or the family monster were bad people in the Middle Ages, but this can makes me feel that way. So with that, family, I'm definitely going to drop another one. Drop a like, subscribe. Thank you for watching this far right here, and to the next time.